Hi, folks. It's Monday, and it's time for Monday Motivation. And I don't know about all y'all, but I'm tired. This last week was exhausting, and I worked really hard to lean into uncomfortable things and learn new things and continue to stay up on what's happening. I'm literally snuggled in one of my favorite blankets on my couch. Um, and the fact that I'm tired and semi get to take a break today from what the work that I'm doing is a privilege in itself, and is also a privilege of my skin color. Black folks, indigenous folks, and people of color, they don't get to take a break when they're tired. So I would just want to name that out loud. Today's Monday motivation, honestly, I couldn't come up with something new. So instead, what I wanted to do is show you a piece that I did this past week for the show that I host, We Schools Live, where with my dear friend Jesse Mintz and my good friend Dr. J, who is Dr. Jackie, but she goes by Dr. J. She's a teacher and administrator out of California. We put together a piece on how to act in allyship as non-Black folks. And Dr. J did a show the day before on Black Lives Matter and racism and systemic racism, and she did a beautiful interview with a young woman named Melanie who's in high school, who's working hard to tackle this, and shared her experience of systemic racism. And there's a link down below if you want to watch that show previous. So when you hear me mention Dr. J in this piece, that's who I'm referencing, and that's the show that I'm referencing. I also want to point out that this in particular, it froze halfway through, not halfway through, but there's a section where it froze. So it jumps a little bit. So that's what that is. But I'm really proud of this piece. I think we did a pretty good job. I'm sure there's a few mistakes and probably things for me to learn, but I hope it'll give you some thoughts, as for those of you that watch that are not Black folks, or not people of color or indigenous background. So this is it for Monday Motivation. Folks, I'm going to continue to post on Instagram, all the things, and I hope that we all just continue to do the work. That's it. Happy Monday. Here's the piece. Now, when we were on a break from the show over the last 2 weeks, things changed. We went from thinking 24/7 about the pandemic to hearing and seeing more stories of systemic racism and watching our cities transform and fill with protests for Black Lives Matter. Now, like many of you, I read what happened to George Floyd with sadness, frustration, or what role I could personally play. Positionality matters in this. My position as a white, cisgender, gay, disabled man means that I've sought to listen first and follow the lead of Black activists and do my best to act in allyship. And we, as an organization, has endeavored to play an active role in the solution, helping young people become leaders and address the issues they face in their communities. That's why it was so important to have Dr. J here yesterday. People with lived experiences of oppression and racism have to chart the course. But it's not enough to just listen anymore. For decades, Black activists have been asking and pleading with white people to join them and fight to end racism. And candidly, it was a wake-up call for me too. I haven't done enough, and my inaction is only adding to the problem. So that's what I've committed to do. Join the fight. Now, I didn't just arrive at this on my own. The team and I put a lot of thought into this, and we had some really difficult and heated conversations. And we recognize that this is a journey, and we all want to do better. So that's what we're doing today. When we've talked about sustainable development goals on this show before, we've always framed them as helping solve issues elsewhere in the world. We've called them a to-do list to solve the world's greatest problems, from hunger to poverty, from climate change to lack of access to clean water. But we're not living up to the SDGs in Canada and the United States. Goal number 16 is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies with access to justice for all. That is exactly what Black Lives Matter is fighting for right now. We can't ignore it any longer. Yesterday, Dr. J told us what's happening in our cities. She asked us to get involved. And today I want to talk about what it means to be an ally in this movement. Today's show is aimed at people who are not Black. That's the role that I can play, helping more people to learn how to act in allyship and play a productive, active role. And I want to make it very clear, if you are Black and you have thoughts or comments as we go through the show, please share them in the chat function. This is an opportunity for myself and for all of us to learn and grow. So first, let's go with the definition. Ally isn't a title that you wear. It's something that you do. So think of it more as a verb instead of a noun. It's one thing to recognize the importance of Black Lives Matter, but it's another thing to actively participate in the solution. So allyship requires three things: openness, humility, and a willingness to lean into discomfort. Now I'm going to unpack each of them right now, so we have a bit of a better understanding what they are. So if we look at that first one, openness, we need to be open to new ways of thinking and being. We're raised in a culture that privileges whiteness over everything else. It happens in ways both big and small, and in ways we can see and ways we can't see. We need to be willing to unlearn our own racist assumptions and tendencies and relearn new ways of thinking. So that's the first one, openness. Second is humility. We're going to make mistakes. I know I've made some, and I know I will make more, and that's okay. No one has all of the answers, and no one expects perfection. So long as we learn, do the work, and recognize our errors, and just keep trying. And lastly, a willingness to lean into discomfort. This is hard. This is a hard one. It's hard to live in discomfort. The easy path is to just keeping our head down. It's ignoring racism. It's letting that questionable joke slide. But that's not how we contribute to change. Discomfort is absolutely necessary for growth. And speaking of discomfort, there's one exercise every white person should engage with to help identify the areas of society that need to change. And this one can be very uncomfortable, but it is a powerful piece of anti-racist work. I'm talking about acknowledging our privilege. Now, privilege is a special advantage that only a select group of people enjoy. In this case, I'm talking about my whiteness, the color of my skin. Now, I said earlier that our positionality is so important. I don't have the same level of privilege as a straight man, but my sexuality and my body and disability, I want to make this very clear, do not undo the privilege I experience because of my whiteness. I want to say that one more time. I do not have the same level of privilege as a straight man, but my sexuality and my body do not undo the privilege I experience because of my whiteness. So what do I mean by that? I've never been followed by security in a store worried I would steal something. I've grown up seeing my face reflected in the media, politics, and culture. I can think about racism that others face without reflecting on my own experiences. I live without a daily sense of fear for my life. And truthfully, these are just a few ways that my privilege manifests in my life, and there's so many more. So take some time to think about your privilege. Talk about it with your friends or family and be open to the idea. Sometimes when this conversation comes up, in the media or with our friends, people get defensive. They think that white privilege, somehow undoes all the work that they've put into their life. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I really liked what @KimBlackProud said on Twitter. She said, white privilege doesn't mean that your life hasn't been hard. It means that your skin color isn't one of the things making it hard. And again, privilege manifests in all of our lives, and it's our job to do something about it, to level the playing field that keeps others from enjoying the same opportunities and access. Now, as I mentioned, being an ally and acting in allyship, it's a process. It's a journey, and we're going to stumble along the way, probably a lot. But we need to be okay with that, and we need to commit to action. So in that spirit, here is what I'm committing to doing. I'm going to start with 5 things. The first, I commit to continuing to reflect and learn. Long after the protests have faded from the front page, I want to make this a focus of my life and my activism. To give you an example, some friends and I have started a non-work related group to share resources and ideas and expand our learning. For this week, many of us committed to doing 1 political action, 1 personal action, and 1 learning. I took what I learned through my job of action planning, and we did it with some friends, again, outside of work. Second, I will expand the circle of people to look to, such as writers, thinking, leaders, taking my cue from Black activists, and more specifically, Black Indigenous women. And I will make sure that any help or support given will be compensated. I will call out racism. This is the third one. I will call out racism when I see it. This really is table stakes, folks. It's the bare minimum we all have to do. We can't sit idle anymore. The fourth is I will use my privilege and my education to talk to others about the issues. I had a 3-hour conversation with my family on Sunday, and it was difficult and beautiful and challenging, and it's the first time we've ever really tackled this. And it was hard, but I'm glad that we did it. And the 5th one is I will support Black-owned businesses. One way that I'm doing that today, I just posted on my Instagram, I want to do a takeover for any Black-owned organizations, Black-owned activists, or Black-owned brands. They can DM me at Spencer to the West, and I would love to let them take over my Instagram. I have a meager 22,000 following, so it's a bit lower on the scale there, but it's still a following nonetheless, and I would like to use my voice, my platform on social media to help amplify other folks. So those are the 5 things right now that I'm committing to doing. Now, as we go through the show today, I want you to think about, what you can do as an ally, and that may start on social media. It's a good place to begin, but I want to be very clear. It's a good place to begin, but it can't end there. And social media is just one tool in a massive toolkit that you can build to help be an ally.